Okay, we've got a lot of tungsten lighting here. Okay, it's a little bit of an overcast day here. We're doing a casual Saturday afternoon video. Hi, you've found a channel on the internet called Not Your Big Sister because that's the name that I chose. My name's Monica. I have commenced a no buy year starting on February 1st, 2019, and it will end on February 1st of next year. If you want to know more about my no buy year, I recorded a video about that, going into a lot more detail about what my rules are, what it means to me, and I will link that somewhere. I'll figure out how to do that. Today I wanted to talk about something that I briefly mentioned in that video, which was the fact that I went through the KonMari method. I read the books, all three of them by Marie Kondo, and I won't say the C word, I won't say that I completed it, and I wanted to talk about my experience with it, and maybe it'll help you if it's something that you're interested in doing, dabbling in, you know what I mean? If you're interested in it, if you're curious about this little lady and all of her very particular thoughts. I'm talking about Marie Kondo, not me, but also, and apparently her name is pronounced Marie, which has just sent my mind on a furious bender. For the sake of this video, can I call her Marie Kondo? Oh God. I'm from California, okay? This is what my mouth wants to do. I've set this up into sort of 5 bullet points. 5 things that nobody tells you about the Marie Kondo method. I feel like there are things that I want to say. The whole thing took me about 9 months. It was a really fascinating experience. My friend Emily had sent me the first book with a really darling note because that's the kind of woman that she is. I thought it was going to stay on my shelf as like one of the many books that I have that I think is interesting and I want to know more about the point of view, but I don't actually want to do anything in the book. Clothing is the first thing that she recommends that you start with. Clothing was super easy for me. I don't have a lot of clothes. I was done with that in an afternoon. It was actually super fun to dump everything out onto the floor and the couch. I like a little bit of mayhem, so that was nice. Point number 1, it's not about minimalism. It's not about minimalism. Let me say again. It's not about minimalism. I think there's a broader understanding of minimalism, and then there is what the movement is all about. I had the broader sense of what minimalism was, which in my head, it was like a white counter with a white base on it with a single flower. And you're like, oh, I'm so comfortable. I don't have anything. I'm home. And I'm like, I can't think of a home that's more depressing for me. I like a lot of texture. I love color. I love different colors. All my books, all of my clothes. I have my scarves out. Like I want to see all of the things that I have. And I just felt like, you know, people were like, oh, she wants you to get rid of all your stuff and everything like that. And it's really not about that at all. It is about getting the superfluous stuff out. And you can really tell when you take everything into your hand and see how it makes you feel. When you actually interact with your things, it becomes a conversation between you and your home and your space that you want to create for yourself. It's so not about chucking all of your things out and then you have the perfect home when you don't have things. As I was going through the process, I started to feel inside this sort of equilibrium, this like tuning fork would just kind of go off when I had hit the point where I had the right number of things in whatever category. It was super weird. I was like, is this the life-changing magic? Is this the magic that's happening? Because I feel like I'm developing skills. Which brings me to point number 2 of things that nobody tells you about this method. No one else can gauge the right amount of things for you. Everybody's got their friggin' opinions about this method. Fine. Do it. Do it and see what you think. That's what I say. I put that experience on like my Instagram stories up on my Instagram because especially with makeup and books and just like seeing how much I had at the beginning felt so overwhelming that I was like, how am I gonna do this? And so just by letting people know what I was doing, I wasn't reaching out for someone else's opinion. I was just letting them know, hey, I'm in my apartment and I'm doing this and I feel like I'm gonna drown under my things. It made it feel a lot better. It was sort of like a working journal for me. But I posted a before and after picture, which I will show you on here, of just my face palettes. I had gotten to the point where I had let so many of them go that I'd gotten them down to one little drawer in my Alex drawers. That felt so good, and so I posted that on my Instagram, and Marie Kondo reposted me right here, took a screenshot of it. Thank you. I felt so validated. So if you went through her Instagram at that time, which was like September of 2017, posts would have like 12 comments here, 10 comments, 18 comments, things like that. Mine had 50. People were like, why would somebody have this much makeup? That's still too much shit. Some people were like, this is beautiful, it's art. Some people were like, I love the way this looks. I'm so scared of how much this cost. It's like, I get that too. And I was trying to respond to things, and I was like trying to be like clever and stuff like that, but I was trying to respond to things. What really struck me about the nature of the comments, especially the critical ones, I was like, people who are saying things like this, I can tell that they have not done this process. They have not engaged in this process for themselves in any meaningful way, because there is no way that I would be able to look at someone's home and be like, this is too much shit, or whatever. I mean, I could have my own opinion about it, but that would mean this is too much shit for me. It doesn't mean anything about you and your journey and your process. And so I think that is something that is so incredibly important to remember. And that was something that post really taught me, is that there's nothing to argue. There's no point to argue. There's nothing that I have to prove to anybody else about the number of things in my home. I know what that equilibrium is. I know where that point is. And it happens during this process. You begin to listen to the cues that your body is giving you. It's such a trip. That's really what it was. And then she deleted it. She deleted the post because it was incendiary. That was my taste of internet fame. Which brings me into my third point. In the book, she's like, do this process alone and do this process not listening to any music. If you have to have like white noise or something, like put on some like nature sounds, like some waves or some rain crashing. Some rain crashing? Some waves crashing. Or rain falling. I don't know why that turned into a number. And like, this is so real. Like, you have to do this alone. Sentimental items took me like 3 months. Like, sentimental items was no joke, and I didn't have a lot of those either. But I was trying to like go through sentimental items, and my friend was over, and I just like burst into tears, and I was like, okay. Okay, let's put this away from when I'm alone. Like, she was right about that. And then, in order to make it like easy on myself, I was like, well, let me just try it with music. And then I put on music and I burst into tears. And so I was like, okay, this isn't helping me make decisions. And the music I can understand, because, you know, music influences your mood. And really the most important thing about your emotions and your feelings is how you feel when you pick up each item. It's not about anything outside, any type of outside influence. Commit to it and commit to doing it alone. I would say this is a little caveat, addition to the list, is trust the process. Like, she's like, say thank you to your socks, and you're like, what the hell? But have you ever tried saying thank you to your socks? Like just try it, you know? You're by yourself, it's fun. Point number 4. This is a controversial point. In her book, she makes a very strong point of saying that anyone that has gone through her method has not relapsed. She has a 0% rate of relapse. Now, I will say this. You absolutely can relapse if you don't finish. So for me, and I talked about this briefly in my first video explaining my no-buy, I didn't finish. I got literally right to the end. I got right to the end of sentimental items, and there is an item, it's still in my home, that I don't feel ready to let go of yet. That's probably not true. I got right up to that item, and then I was no longer open to having the conversation about my feelings, and saying thank you to this item and all of that, I got really irritated and put it away, and then slowly started to accrue things again. And then I started working at Sephora, and Sephora, they give you free stuff. I really hit that point again where I felt like my equilibrium was off. I felt like I was getting too many things. And then I was getting anxious about that. And then my response to being anxious about having too many things was returning to a behavior to make me feel calm, which was shopping. So I sort of reverted, and then the more that I shopped and the more that I accrued, the more nervous that I would get, the more anxious that I felt, the more out of balance I felt. And so the more I would turn to the behavior that would calm me down, which was go shop. And while I am nowhere near the level of items that I was at when I started my Marie Kondo journey, I'm still way more than I need. And you know, who doesn't need a little spruce up every now and again? Point number 5, you start to look forward to it. And you do get discouraged, but then you start to look forward to it again. The first day that I did clothes, it felt like I was a toddler dumping out my toy box. Like, it felt so fun to just dump all of my clothes out in one area. And like, I wanted to do a leaf pile dive. Like, it was so ridiculous. Once I started to get into the rhythm of it, like, I would get home from work and I'd be like, okay, I'm doing this stuff. And also because all the stuff was in the middle of the floor, like my books, I'm like, I can't have a nice relaxing night with all my books in the middle of the floor. Like, I gotta get to it. And once you get through like one pile of things, you're like, oh, I can do this. It makes you excited to get through the next pile of things and to the next point where you get to dump all of your stuff out on the floor. I mean, I really do not underestimate how fun it is to dump all your shit out in the middle of the floor. It is a riot. I would say too that there were definitely points where I would get discouraged. Dumping all of my makeup out in the middle of the floor and then separating that out into categories was like, you know, my heart was like this. Like, I was just like, how am I even gonna do this? But then I did. I completed things that I would have never thought I would complete. Coming home every night and getting a little bit farther into this pile of recklessness. Okay, who the fuck is this? So like, coming home from work every night and like diving into this pile was so much fun. The more you go through the piles of your things, like the more you are interacting with things that you actually love. So it's not daunting. You want to get the things out of the way that you don't love so that you can interact more with the things that you do love. And so it becomes like this thing that has its own built-in reward. Get the first book, read it, and just start. So hopefully that was interesting, hopefully helpful, or inspires some of you who are curious about this particular method of, I don't want to say tidying up because like everybody's talking about tidying up now. This particular method of like finding yourself in the home that you've always wanted. Hopefully this inspires you to take a step toward that journey. And I'm also doing this so that I can continue on my journey for that. So great. We both win. High five, you and me. Boop. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.